Welcome to the Global News Podcast from the BBC. I'm Will Chalk, and today I'm joined by Param Gabbardi from BBC Persian. And Param, the United Nations has condemned a sweeping crackdown in Iran, warning that executions and mass arrests as well have surged during this war.
Correct. So, according to United Nations, 21 prisoners have been executed, and they're accused of being a Mossad agent, or they were involved in the January protests. As you know, this war happened just 50 days after the mass protests, nationwide protests in Iran, where thousands of Iranians were killed by security agents in just the span of 2 days. Only in 2 nights, thousands were killed. So now rights groups have always been accusing the Iranian regime of using execution as an intimidation tool. So whenever the regime is under threat and whenever it sees itself and its existence threatened, they ramp up they increase the number of the executions. Today, one of the rights groups in Iran published an audio from one Iranian prisoner. He's just 26 years old. He was imprisoned. He was arrested 3 years ago on charges of being in touch with Mossad. And so he's crying on the phone. He says that he was just notified that he was handed down. His execution sentence was confirmed by the Iranian Supreme Court. And he explains that his execution, when it was handed to him, it was revoked twice by the Supreme Court. This was the third time, and the Supreme Court approved it finally. So what I'm trying to say is that there are a lot of ambiguities around how these sentences are handed down. Many rights groups are saying that they do not have the proper legal proceedings. They do not have access to proper lawyers. And these are more political sentences rather than something that they have actually done.
Yeah, and we've had this comments from Volker Türk from the UN. He said he's appalled and that, and I quote, "On top of the already severe impacts of the conflict, the rights of the Iranian people continue to be stripped from them by the authorities in harsh and brutal ways." Is there a sense that Iran is using the war as a smokescreen to carry on doing these activities, but kind of hide it from the gaze of the world?
So it appears so. And like I said, when Iran is under pressure, they use it. They use executions. And this time we have mass arrests, as you mentioned, mass detention of political dissidents. So this time, for example, every single day you see it on Iranian media that they're publishing the videos of people who've just filmed, for example, a place that was targeted by Israelis and Americans, and they send it to, social media or news channels outside Iran, and they've been arrested. So police raid their house and arrest a young woman or a young man, and then they publish their forced confessions on news. So they use these tools in order to stop Iranians from contacting Persian-speaking channels outside the country and also sending them material. And as you know, it's been almost 2 months that there is a digital blackout in Iran. So Iranians can hardly connect to the internet, rarely. At the same time, massive repression of Iranians. And apart from that, what Iranian government has done, which is unprecedented, is that on a daily basis, every night, its supporters come to the streets and they start chanting Allahu Akbar and pro-regime slogans in order to intimidate the citizens, because they fear that Iranians, because of the economic situations, might revolt and might take to the streets, and they have to face another round of protests in the midst of the war.
And yet, despite that blackout that you mentioned, since the start of the conflict, you and your colleagues from BBC Persian have been getting in touch with people in Iran. I wonder, what have you heard about the mood inside the country?
So, when I talk to Iranians inside the country, which is very difficult, there are different feelings and sentiments inside the country. So some of them, they were happy that the Iranian supreme leader was killed. However, now after 2 months of war, and as they're suffering economically and financially from the consequences of the war, the mood is changing, the sentiment is changing, and some of them are saying that we just want an end to this and get back to a normal life. Because they thought that this attack is going to topple the Iranian regime. That did not happen. Not only that did not happen, but also it has Iranian regime, most analysts believe that it has become more hardliner. The Revolutionary Guards, IRGC, have the upper hand. So some of them are really disappointed that they see that not only this regime is not gone and overthrown, but it has become more hardliner, and the suppression and the crackdown has become more intense. The other group of people, when you talk to them, they are really dismayed, and many of them, they told me and my colleagues that we are selling our gold, jewelry, things like that in order to be able to get by and to make the ends meet, because they've been laid off, massive laid-outs across the country. Many people, their livelihood was connected to the internet. They had online shops, producing stuff, selling it online. So their livelihood is totally cut out and they cannot make the ends meet in this situation. So they're selling carpets, rugs, and jewelries in order to be able to survive.
So in the weeks before the war, Donald Trump warned Iran not to kill protesters. Given that we know that it's still carrying on, has that rhetoric changed anything?
So you have to see that Iranians might have considered that before the war started. But as soon as the war started, things changed, because both Benjamin Netanyahu and Donald Trump, they said that this is the aim of the war is regime change. So Iranian regime, it's an existential fight for them. They're fighting for their survival. And they know about the mass discontent of many Iranians inside the country. Like I said, in January, there were nationwide protests. Thousands of people were killed by security forces. So they are aware of this. Now they know that it's extremely detrimental for them if there's another round of protests while they're fighting Americans and Israelis. So they don't, at this stage, they don't care about that. They're carrying out these executions to send a signal to people that if you revolt, if you contact Americans, if you contact Israelis, if you have anything to do with the war or with protests, you're going to be killed one way or another. So for them, right now, the most important thing is to survive, to be able to suppress those who are dissidents, and at the same time be able to survive the fight with Americans.
We're talking about this today because of comments from the UN. What does history tell us about how Iran reacts to interference from outside, whether it be from Donald Trump or from the likes of the UN?
So it has changed over time. Right now, like I said, Revolutionary Guards have the upper hand. It appears to be a rift in the system as well, because there are people like Ghalibaf, Iranian parliament speaker. Although they have the background from Revolutionary Guard, they're more pragmatic. Or, for example, Iranian foreign minister, he's more a moderate. However, the head of the Revolutionary Guard, the commander, Ahmad Vahidi, he's a hardliner. He's a person who is on Interpol, arrest warrant. There's an arrest warrant for him because of his involvement in Amia bombing back in the 90s of the Jewish, cultural center in Argentina. So because of that, and he was the first head of Iranian Quds Force, which is Revolutionary Guard's foreign off-branch. They operate in other countries. So I want to give you a sense of what kind of person seems to be running the country right now. So he's got, he's leading the Revolutionary Guard. He's fighting the Americans. And it appears to many analysts that he's calling the shots right now, even in the negotiations with Americans. So for this kind of person to say that UN is saying this and that, UN is condemning something that you're doing, is highly unlikely to change their, decision-making process.
Param, thank you very much for your time. That's Param Gabadi from BBC Persian. That is it for this edition of the Global News Podcast. If you like what we do and you want to hear more from us, you can click the link below. Thanks for watching.